this room and have not thought about prison, or you've thought about it as you drove past San Quentin and thought, what an amazingly valuable piece of property. We actually thought about taking Battery members on a tour of San Quentin, and it was David and me who said that's actually a bad idea, because San Quentin is the most beautiful prison where prisoners do get to go outside and do get to go to programs like The Last Mile. Chris and Beverly are in the back, or these amazing programs like the ones that ARC runs. They can get degrees, they can play basketball. That's not real prison. I mean, going on these video shoots, and when you go inside, these guys who get 1 hour a day out of doors or even out of their cells, where their lives are thrown away, and none of us think of them. Who on a daily basis in this audience, unless you're working on this issue, thinks about those people in prison? Nobody, because our system right now takes them and moves them and locks them away in a place that we don't have to deal with it, so we can lead our amazing lives, and so that we can come to the Battery, and so that we can have amazing friends and support causes that are glamorous and make us feel and look great. But I don't think you're here because you believe that that's the way things should be. I think you're here because you recognize hearing stories like this, whether it's stopping the flow going in, whether it's identifying with the individuals and their mental health strengths and weaknesses, their individualities is crucial, whether it's your ability either as a public servant or as someone who has the ability to make change, that these small changes really can add up to major successes. All of these insights are why we're here today, and why Michael and Xochitl had the vision to start this cascade of positive events. So I'm going to start asking the panel two quick questions, and then I'd love for you to pick it up from here. But I think it was David, you talked about the importance of small, accomplishable changes. Can each of you talk a little bit about a small change that you'd advise this group to think about as part of our ability to make a difference? Scott, you're nodding. You want to start?
You all are going to be hopefully going to vote in November. Lenore Anderson is in the back of the room. Raise your hand, Lenore. Lenore is driving force behind another proposition you're going to see in the ballot, Prop 47. And Prop 47 is going to take a few petty theft felonies and drug possession felonies and make them misdemeanors. And I'm probably going to butcher this because I do every time I say it, and Lenore can correct me later. But that would immediately give 10,000 people in prison for nonviolent drug possession felonies and petty theft felonies the ability to immediately go home. And it would also take a few 100,000 people who are trying to live in society and get jobs with a felony on their record for a nonviolent drug possession felony, immediately expunge it from their record. I know it's something that David Mills is working on, that Mike Romano is working on, and it's all something that you guys can vote on in November. You can hold fundraisers for it, when you hold fundraisers for profit. I think it's just something very tangible. And the last thing I want to say is, once again, hope, hope, hope. What you guys can do in just having a positive individual in some of these folks' lives. There are so many people in the Bay Area that I could introduce you to that have gotten released from Chris and Beverly's program at San Quentin and from various prisons in the area, and are doing the right thing and are looking for work and will work their butts off. When I hired these guys on The Hangover, they hustled harder than anyone whose daddy got them into the business. So just being there, being a helping hand, finding some jobs, housing, directing people into school, scholarships. I mean, all that it takes is for one competent, caring, consistent person in these guys' lives to turn them around. And we have a lot of those in this room. So.
Anybody else want to talk about small changes?
Hire an ex-con.
You took mine.
David said this. I'm telling a secret that this is not the first time he said hire an ex-con, but he was speaking at the Legal Defense Fund annual dinner where he was being honored. And you had a whole lot of very wealthy, successful people sitting in a room who we had a hard time even getting money from when we were working on Prop 36. And David said to each of them, I know you might be uncomfortable having them be your neighbor. It's scary having someone who's come out of a very violent system, and even if they weren't violent going in, they might be pretty damn pissed when they get out of there. But if you're not willing to live next to them, give someone a job, because that's the beginning of showing you believe in them and you see them as a human being and turning them around. So, you know, David's joking, hiring an ex-con, he's really not joking at all. That if every one of us could take someone by the hand and pull them forward and be that role model that Scott was talking about, we would make a dramatic difference. So I'd love to open it up to questions from all of you who have been so patient as we've told our stories.
I'd like to add to what are two things. There's two other ways. We touched on this, and I'm really big on this idea that you mentioned that there's these intervention points in people's lives that we could change the system as well. If we start preventing folks from also getting into the system, and if they're in, adequately changing their lives. And so Scott right now is working on a program to rebuild a juvenile facility that is focused heavily on trauma treatment and education. This is a program or opportunity we can work on with. I'm working and building out a group out in Los Angeles to focus on urban boarding schools for kids who would otherwise end up in juvenile halls. So it's not for the most gifted, but keeping kids in the community. One of the things that's happening in impoverished communities is we're constantly telling them to get successful, get up and get out of the hood. But in fact, I need them to stay here with me to help change what's happening and for us to build wealth there. And so there's two other opportunities there to focus in.
I want to follow up on this points of intervention thing, because by the time people get to my caseload, it's really far down the line. I have a large caseload. 80% of my clients have schizophrenia or another psychotic disorder, and almost all of them are charged with felonies, and mostly violent felonies. We're one of the only mental health courts that actually, we did it sort of, well, I don't think it's backwards, but everyone else did it backwards. We started with a population that was actually putting the public at risk. But one of the places where we're really having trouble, where we're really struggling, is with actually the lower level offenders. And these are sometimes the guy on the corner who just cycles in and out at this level where the criminal justice system doesn't have enough leverage to keep them in treatment or to make it enough of an incentive to do a difficult program. So I think if we could take this, the idea of this program and figure out how it is that we work with people who are not as far along in the line. I mean, he wants you to hire an ex-con. I want you to put me out of a job. I don't want this job. I shouldn't have to do it. We shouldn't be here. Create a point of intervention way before they get to me. I mean, that has to start, you know, it starts way earlier. But in this, you know, from where I'm coming from, one step back would be a great way to prevent a lot of mentally ill people from ending up worse.
I have one. For those of you who are entrepreneurs and have that spirit, that's not kind of my gig, right? But I get the sense it's yours. If you want to do a lot of good, start a business or a nonprofit, either one, that provides mental health, behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment in rural California. Mm-hmm. So it's great. It's one thing to be in San Francisco. You can't walk down the street without tripping on some NGO or some other do-gooder who's trying to make a difference in someone's lives. But you go to Amador County and you have mental illness and a co-occurring drug and alcohol problem, and there is no one in your county to provide you with care. We bus you, right, to Sacramento or to Redding or to somewhere else. There's like 2 or 3 places in all of rural California where you can get any kind of treatment at all. Those people have no chance. The rural poor have no chance. And typically, they're, a lot of them, right, are there because they're following Harvest, right? So poor housing, and then you add a conviction and some substance use issues, no chance. And so the government will now pay you through the Affordable Care Act to do this thing for these people. And maybe not all, maybe not if you're not documented, but for the most of them. And so I don't know, maybe go make some money in rural California making a difference in people's lives.
Very good question.
A lot of questions. Why don't we
Can I-
start in the way back?
What are some volunteer opportunities for young professionals in the San Francisco Bay Area? Maybe you guys can think of any.
Anybody want to take that? Volunteer opportunities?
Chris Redlitz, do you have any volunteer
We
opportunities?
do, yeah. So, yeah, you can see Beverly, but, yeah, our name is Chris Redlitz, and I, with my wife, started the Last Mile in San Quentin, and we're in the process of expanding that. But our program this past year in LA and Bay Area, we had 90 volunteers. So that's a lot of people that are giving their time. And when we started the program, we had no idea if we'd get one. But it's really, this all comes from people that are passionate about helping. And there are a lot of opportunities to help out in many ways. We're trying to expand our post-release program, as you've been talking about, which is critically important. And I just wanted to introduce someone who I think epitomizes like-profit. Kenyatta Leal, who's standing back here. He was the recipient of the hard work of David and Michael. He was serving a life sentence. And proud of both these guys, but in particularly Kenyatta, because he helped us start this program in San Quentin. He was serving a life sentence. When we met him, he had served 17 years, had no hope for release, but he was one of the most positive people that we'd ever met. And we felt like we really needed to build a program around someone like him. Fortunately, through their work, he was given his release after serving 19 years. Today, he's a manager at Rocket Space, which is one of the technology accelerators here. He manages a crew, and 2 of our other graduates actually work for him. So this is the kind of success that we're getting, and we're really proud of it. And we really would encourage you to volunteer, if not for our program, another program, any program that's helping those folks either inside or outside. So thank you.
I'll also suggest that Abby and crew, we can add to our website some volunteer opportunities, because one of the things that happens a lot in events like this is you get kind of intimidated and you see some of the other people in the room and you think, well, I can't afford to donate $20,000 or $100,000 to this, but I really do want to help. And I think giving of yourself, even if it's mentoring that one person, even if it's volunteering for those 5 hours, are as meaningful as a big check that someone else can write, and probably will have even greater impact on you long term. So that was a fantastic question. I wish I could have planted it myself. Someone else?
Can
I
I
saw a couple hands.
respond to the volunteer thing?
Sure.
So my name is Jacques Ferdin, and I've been working in San Quentin for about 18 years as a nonprofit. And we're a restorative justice program, so we bring in victims to dialogue with the men. And we've developed a pretty unique rehabilitation program that lasts for a year that really addresses that, the courts address the facts with the, depending on your wallet, you get the right representation or not. But nobody addresses the wounds, nor for the victims, nor for the men. So our program zeroes in on that. And we need volunteers, interns, but we also need people to help us with some of the organizational work. So,
Thanks, Sean.
All right.
please, Todd.
Hey, buddy.
I saw some questions over here. Yeah.
Thank you for a very informative and inspiring sentence. We really appreciated that. I wonder if there's anybody who can speak about the community justice boards that I'm hearing about in the city, because that seems to be like a really great way to keep people out of the criminal justice system. If there's anybody who knows about those or has any information. They really have them in various neighborhoods, and they deal with low-level offenses, and they try to keep people out of prison.
I don't know about them, but I know there are, and you can talk more about it, but every piece of evidence shows that for a low-level kid, putting them into incarceration does nothing but make the problem worse. So they do them all over the state, but it's absolutely brilliant, it's evidence-based, and it's exactly what you need to do for a kid that doesn't need to be surrounded by a bunch of harder kids in incarceration.
Yes, there's one community justice center in San Francisco on Polk Street, and that's to People who are arrested in a certain area can go there. They get services. Some of them have mental health issues, but not all of them. And it's low-level things, nonviolent felonies, some people who are on probation for a felony. And it's been doing very, very well. I cover in that court quite often. I'm in there. And having everything in one place on site is a brilliant idea, because one of the problems is that in terms of mental health, I can speak to this, we don't have a coordinated system of care. It's fractured, and sprinkling money in various places isn't going to solve a problem. We need something coordinated so those people don't fall through the gaps, because they have an appointment here and an appointment here at the same time, and they don't have a cell phone to call and say, I can't make that one. Those kind of really silly things end up getting people put back in jail because they missed a court date or something. So those are very great ideas and good programs, and San Francisco's is a good one.
Great. So I would love to keep answering questions, and I think the plan is, since we had promised we'd be done, we'll stay and answer some personal questions for the rest of you who have them. I'll turn it back over to Abby,
Thank you.
who's coordinated all this.
Yes, thank you. So thank you everybody for coming, and a big round of applause for our speakers. As we put this evening together, it was incredibly important to us that we filled the room with a message of hope and possibility, and I think you each have done that, and I appreciate that so much. And what happens next with Battery Powered is we activate that hope and possibility. Because right now we've received nominations on 30 organizations, and my team is reviewing the applications, conducting the due diligence, and we'll come back together as Battery Powered on October 15th and hear from 5 of the organizations who have applied and have the opportunity to review all of the proposals. And then on November 14th, we'll decide as a group who we're going to fund, because that is the Battery Powered program. And so you'll all have an opportunity to learn who those organizations are, to read about them on the website. And my invitation to you tonight is that you nominate. If there's an organization that you know of, tell us about it. Now, the catch is that the applications are due by October 1st. So if you have them in mind, nominate quickly, and they'll have that opportunity to get the application in. But we really want to build the member voice and the member community for this theme and others. So if you haven't yet joined Battery Powered, you can sign up tonight. And we really want your feedback, because this was our first event, and we want to hear what worked and what you'd recommend for us for the next time. That's over at the table too. We have a bar here. We have a bar, I think it's still set up in the other room. And so our invitation to you is to have a drink and to settle into a conversation, because you are just a wealth of information and resource, and I can't thank you enough for coming and speaking with us. Thank you again.